Hello, welcome to my video. If this is the first time you're seeing me, hello, my name is Emma, I'm 25 and I live in Sweden. On this channel, I document my attempt at becoming a better person. If you want to know more about that, or if you want to know more about me, you can watch all my prior videos. But to make a long story short, that is what this channel is all about. Usually when I film, it is dark outside, which is on purpose because if it's light outside, then my face looks very dark when I film. But I have already decided what I want to talk about today, and I have a whole video planned out, and I'm feeling a little restless, so I decided to do it now anyway, even though it is light outside. And I don't know, we'll see how it comes out. Today I'm going to talk about how I lied about having bulimia. This is a story that might make you dislike me, which I totally understand. Because what I did was disgusting. It was just pure disrespect, honestly. You don't do that. But I did it. And I will never forgive myself for it. And I think it's important for me to talk about it and confront myself about it and hold myself accountable. Because I think that's what I need to do in order to become a better person. So, to give a little backstory, all my life I've felt intense feeling of anxiety and shame and guilt. And all my life really I've been convinced that I am a bad person. That's just how it is. And I'm doing my best not to be, but I am. In my early childhood, I had these feelings, but they weren't very intense. It didn't cause me as much problems as they are now. It is when I hit puberty, which was like around 11 or 12, was when these feelings of anxiety and guilt and shame and being a bad person drastically intensified. And I wasn't used to it. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I suffered greatly because of it. And there were times when the feelings of anxiety and guilt and shame and the reality of being a bad person, it was so much at the same time. And little me was so little and tiny and weak and afraid that I couldn't handle it. And I have always, especially back then, looked for a way to find relief. And I want to give a little bit of a trigger warning. I should have done it at the beginning of this video, but I'm gonna just give a trigger warning that in this video we are going to talk about eating disorders and possibly, depending on how you look at it, self-harm. So if you're not comfortable with that, and if it's something that bothers you a great deal, then you don't have to watch this video. Of course, you don't have to watch this video even if you don't have problem with those things. What I'm saying is that if you feel like you cannot watch this video because it triggers you, then I completely understand. And I don't blame you. I wish you the best. And maybe the other videos will be better. But these intense feelings caused me so much discomfort that I started having all these somatic reactions. I still do, but it was a completely new thing for me back then. I wasn't used to it. And I didn't know what to do, and I was so desperate to get rid of these feelings that I would do anything pretty much to get rid of them. And these somatic feelings or reactions or symptoms or whatever you call it, they included intense headaches, inability to sleep, inability to focus. I couldn't understand anything. I was busy feeling terrible and finding a way out of it. And I got nauseous, and I stopped eating, and I stopped drinking, and I stopped doing any of that. And there were times when this nausea became so intense that it made me vomit. And I idiotically figured that, oh, this works. It feels better now afterwards because it's all out now. I have emptied myself of all these feelings of guilt and shame and the conviction of being a bad person, and it's okay now. And eventually it became a bad habit. The intense feelings that caused me all this discomfort, I figured I could get rid of by puking. It is the worst type of logic that you can think of in these situations. It was a terrible idea. You should not be vomiting to get rid of certain feelings. That is not sustainable. It is not a good coping mechanism. It is not normal. You should not have to do that. If that is what you are doing, and if that is your coping mechanism for whatever happens to be, I highly advise you to talk with a medical professional, because you shouldn't have to vomit to feel better unless you are actually like ill and have eaten something bad or have food poisoning or whatever. But if you're fine, and if you use vomiting as a coping mechanism for feelings that make you uncomfortable, that is not normal. So you are a good person and you deserve to have healthy coping mechanisms. You shouldn't have to do that. So if that is what is going on with you, please talk to a medical professional, because you deserve better. I care about you, and that is why I'm telling you this. But it became a bad habit for me. I didn't do it very often, but there were times when I did. And it shouldn't be happening at all, but it did. And when I was 17, I went to a restaurant with my dad and his girlfriend. I think we were celebrating something, or it was a holiday or something. And I ordered a big steak and a grilled lobster, and there were fries and like some lovely sauce to it. It was delicious. I loved it, but it was also very expensive. And so I ate most of it, and then I started feeling full. But I figured, like, this is so expensive, and this is something that I can only have rarely or once in a while. So now that I have the chance to eat it, I'm gonna eat it all, because I'm gonna take the chance now that I have it and really be gluttonous for once. And so I ate it all, even though I wasn't hungry and even though I was full. And then we went home. And on the way home, and when we were home, I started shaking violently, like this. I don't shake. This is what my hands look like when they're normal, and this is how I was shaking. I couldn't even write with a pencil. I was shaking so much. I didn't understand why. I still don't understand why. I have never figured out what that was. It was weird. It was very, very weird. I used my phone to record it and made like a snap story of it, just because, hey, check this out. I wonder what this is. And I got someone who replied like, whoa, that doesn't look good. But I didn't take it too seriously, because it's just a little bit of shaking. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. And my boyfriend at the time called. And just to check up on me and just have a chat. There was no real reason for him calling, just, talk. And so I told him about this. And I said, like, I'm shaking so violently. I ate a little bit more than I usually do, and now I'm just shaking. I don't get it. And he said, because he knew about me having these, like, he knew about my very bad coping mechanism of puking. I had told him about it. And so he said that maybe it's because you're having a panic attack because of your vomiting habit. And maybe it's because you're not comfortable with it, and maybe it's eating disorder related. And that planted a seed in my head. He didn't mean anything bad by it. He was literally just he was just brainstorming and trying to figure out, I wonder why that is. But that was just, I guess, his idea. And it planted a seed in my head because it made sense. And so I went to Google, of course. And after a while, I ended up reading all about bulimia. And it made sense to me. And I thought, well, that's it. I get it. This is it. This is what I have. This is what I'm struggling with. It all makes sense now. And so, from that point on, I was bulimic. Thing about that is that in the back of my mind, I always knew that I wasn't bulimic. But I ignored it. because it made sense, and I had an answer for all my problems. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't true. I just wanted to understand why I'm feeling this way. And it made sense, and that was the solution that I needed at the time. So it became reality, even though it wasn't reality. Eating disorders in general are often associated, don't quote me on this. This is just what I have read. I might be wrong. So don't take me or my info for granted or whatever. Take this with a pinch of salt is what I'm saying. And there are probably other people who know more than me. But eating disorders are often associated with a fear of gaining weight and a fear of gaining weight for whatever reason. I've never had a fear of gaining weight. I have actually been underweight most of my life. When I was younger, I had to get extra meals in school because I was underweight. And I was always told to eat more because I was so frail and I was so skinny. This is my wrist. Here's my thumb. I can touch every single finger on my hand around my wrist. So, actually, you know what? So, this is what I look like. So I've always been on the skinnier side. And I never had a fear of gaining weight. In fact, I needed to gain weight because I was underweight. And bulimia, or eating disorders in general, are often, if not always, centered around the fear of gaining weight. I have never had that fear of gaining weight. I actually need to gain some weight. But I said I was bulimic anyway because it was the perfect solution. It made sense. And that's why I did it. And so, from the age of 17, I was bulimic. Even though I wasn't, but I said I was. At some point, there was a friend of mine who, if I ever meet again, I owe a massive, massive apology to. Because this friend had actually experience with eating disorders. And when I said that I was bulimic, she asked me, have you been to this clinic? Where I live, there is a clinic, a psychiatry clinic that is specializing in eating disorders. And so she asked me, have you been at this clinic? And me, not wanting to seem like it's not real, said, yeah, I have been there, even though I hadn't. I will never forgive myself for this. I will never, ever forgive myself for this. Shame on me. And so I told her I was bulimic. There was another girl who I was not very good friends with, actually, who was also struggling with eating disorders. Actually, she was legitimately struggling with bulimia. And she told, what the fuck was I thinking? She told me about her struggles. And I told her, like, that doesn't really sound like bulimia to me. Why the fuck did I do that? And she got mad, of course. Who wouldn't be? And told me, like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm diagnosed with bulimia. You can believe whatever you want. Leave me alone. She was right. If I ever meet her again, I will apologize to her. Not only for doubting her, but also for lying about being bulimic. I was a horrible person. I'm still a horrible person. But that proved it. And so there was this other girl at some point who I have already told a story about. And she was the same girl who I talked about in my video called the me mentality, who complained about nobody caring about her because she was hurting herself and nobody was talking to her and it was terrible and whatever. She also started saying that she was bulimic. We were the same age. I think the reason why she became such a large part, or why so many things happened that I associate with her, is because I compare myself to her. From what I hear, she's doing great. But at that time, we both were in a similar situation. And I compared myself to her. And she said that she was bulimic. And it just didn't make sense. And there was this like she did a Snap story where she said, my friends are so cute, they're worried about me because all I've eaten today is a tiny little cookie and a Coke Zero. And it just didn't really make sense to me. And another time she said that, what was it? I haven't eaten everything today, so my mother is forcing me to go to the doctor. Which, it doesn't work that way. You have to have a referral or an appointment. You can't just suddenly barge in at the doctor's office and saying, I haven't eaten today. It doesn't work like that. And I think I sent her a snap and I told her, are you actually bulimic? And she said, yeah. And I just told her straight up, I don't believe you. And she answered, well, I'm diagnosed, so. And I just told her that what you're doing isn't right. Maybe you are, but I don't think you are. Prove me wrong if I'm wrong. But what you're doing isn't okay. You can't just sit there and pretend like you're bulimic just because you want pity points. Essentially is what I told her. I think I said some other things, but that is what I told her. She stopped. She never, ever again said that she was bulimic. But needless to say, I was a massive hypocrite. I had no right to call her out. I was the biggest hypocrite that I think I've ever heard anyone be. What I was doing was wrong. But I think that because I compared myself so much to this girl, I saw myself in her. And when I told her that what you are doing isn't okay, you can't just say you have bulimia for pity points, I was sort of talking to myself. Because I knew that even though I'm saying that I'm bulimic, I wasn't. But I was saying that I was. I was doing literally what I accused this girl of doing. Maybe she actually had an eating disorder at the time. But I hate to say it, but this is why I'm a bad person. It has been some time since then, and there has been times where she said, I don't want to bother those with eating disorders. So I think, I don't know, I was a bad person. I still am a bad person. It just didn't make sense to me, and that's why I called it out. But I think that me calling her out, that was the moment when I realized that I need to stop lying. Because what I was doing was wrong. I was lying. But in that moment, it hit me that you're not going to become a better person just because there are so many things wrong with you. There are things wrong with you, but you are still a bad person. Just because there are more things that you struggle with doesn't make you any better. It doesn't give you the right to tell other people that they are not good, because you're not good. You're worse. And so I stopped saying that I was bulimic. But this feeling inside of me, the guilt, the shame, that was still there. And so it took some time. But when I was 20 or 21, it took that long, seriously. I decided that enough is enough. So I made a snap story. I went into my notes and I wrote down, up until now, I've been a liar. I've told a lot of lies and I feel terrible and it's time for me to own up. And so I said, or actually I wrote, here are some of the lies that I have told. And one of them was that I was bulimic. And I openly admitted it wasn't true. I wasn't bulimic. I've never been bulimic. I've never had an eating disorder. And it was such a freeing feeling that ever since I have had this mindset, I guess, that lying is bad. Well, lying is bad. I always knew that. But it was at that moment I decided that from now on, this has to stop. This is wrong. I can't do this. And so I stopped. And I'm not gonna say that I've been 100% truthful ever since. There have been times where, like, my mother said, did you take the chicken out the freezer? And I said, yeah, totally, but I hadn't. And maybe like, oh, I forgot my homework when I just didn't do it. But there is a very big difference between that and saying that you have a serious eating disorder, even though you don't. And that is the story of me lying about being bulimic. I hope that if there is anybody watching this who is thinking of self-diagnosing, which is essentially what I did, here's my advice: don't. This entire story is part of the reason why I am against self-diagnosing. You do not have what it takes to know whether or not you have an eating disorder. That is for a professional to investigate. Don't be me. Don't do what I did. What I did was horrible. I will never forgive myself for it. I don't deserve to be forgiven for it. Don't do what I did. Thanks for watching.